The Zane Train will have to wait a second to pull on station because the Hauss Express is rolling in first to start against UT Martin.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms and visually as well on YouTube. You can find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we just get to roll right into this conversation that is somewhat surprising, but at the same point in time, there's probably some credence along the way. But y'all know the drill. I like to bring guests onto this program so we can kind of chat it up. Today we got Trent again and the old school heavy hitter Reagan Harris back in the house. Fellas, it may not be the most welcoming news to all Cowboy fans across the country, but at least we have a named starter, and we can now begin to build the excitement a little bit rolling into this game. First of all, fellas, how are we feeling about Cowboy football kicking off tomorrow, and how are we feeling about this announcement?
I mean, obviously, I'm really excited for the most part. I mean, it's UT Martin. I think of all the FCS teams that we've played over the past several years, this is the one that should cause us the absolute least amount of trouble.
Right.
I mean, South Dakota State, incredible program. Honestly, when you look back on it, that was actually a really good win for us. And then Missouri State is no joke. So I fully expect this to kind of be like an Arkansas Pine Bluff type of day, hopefully. The rain could cause some problems, but I'm excited.
Well, speaking of the rain, Trent, do you think that there's any plausible scenario in which that the weather potentially is playing a factor here for Hauss getting a nod over Zane to kick things off?
Yeah, I do. But first and foremost, I don't want to take anything away from Hauss. I think, we've heard a lot of great things about Hauss. At the end of the day, I think all three of us, we want what's best for the program, and we want the quarterback that's going to put us in the best position to win the game, whether it be Hauss or Zane. But yeah, I think it could be the rain. I think it could be a million other things that we can take a dive into and see what everybody thinks about it. But I mean, it's hard to tell right now because we don't know. All we've heard this off season is how much, or in fall camp, how much Zane and Hauss have both progressed, and they're both doing well. So it's a toss up. They're both going to play. So I just, I stand on the side of Hauss is going to be the first quarterback trotting out, but I don't necessarily agree that he is actually the starting quarterback.
Well,
I think that's to be determined.
What was it? 2013 is when we rolled out Clint Shelf for the first, two series, and then they put JW in, and then JW was the quarterback for the first few weeks until JW kind of had some injuries pop back up. I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but you're not the first to mention that it could be something comparable. Hauss Hejny, though, we have to all clearly admit, he must have done some pretty incredible things in the fall camp because Zane is a Gundy guy. And 9 times out of 10, Mike Gundy goes with the veteran that he can trust, that, he understands how he already operates in the locker room and how he handles the playbook and the scholastic load and all of that. So I don't want to say this is an unprecedented move, but, this does feel like a very rare move for Mike Gundy. Doug Meacham has to have a hand in this, right? There's a massive reason why Hauss Hejny came to Oklahoma State, and he talked about it on this very show. Whenever they got, Hauss saw Kevin Johns and Doug Meacham, it was a no-brainer. So the NIL was somewhat insignificant whenever he got the top 2 coaches in his high school recruiting experience, both coming to Stillwater. And I think that comfortability has something to go alongside it. Now, Reagan, you mentioned something off air real quick. Give us the skinny, what you're thinking about the offensive line, because I also feel like there has to be something to that, right? Right. When Rangel went through his exit meeting, he was told verbatim, you're just not fast enough to run this offense with the offensive line. I had assumed that when we got Markel Samuel, Grant Sigrin, and Bob Schick, that we'd maybe, short up the issues on the O-line. But with Hauss Hejny being so fast and that clearly being something they told Garrett was not in his skill set, that has to potentially factor in here, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's interesting. I actually think it You mentioned Bob Schick. I actually think that that's almost irrelevant to why Hejny was selected, because he's on the left side of the line. Something that you need to keep in mind is the blind side for the quarterback often is going to be on that left side, which is pretty solid. I mean, I'm excited for Schick. I think Markel Samuel has a lot of promise, 6'4", 300 senior with a ton of experience in the Sun Belt. I like him. So I'm not worried about the left side. The blind side is okay. Hejny on the weak side that he's visual of, the right, which is actually pretty inexperienced, got a sophomore and a redshirt freshman over there. So what happens there is going to be interesting. I think Hejny showed in practice he was a lot better when the pocket did collapse at rolling out and getting extra yards, tucking when it mattered, that type of thing. Zane just doesn't have enough reps under his belt yet. I think that this is the season where first 2 games, I think Tulsa, UT Martin, I want to see a lot of Zane reps, even if Hejny is the guy this season, because I want him to get experience with that line, get familiar with them, you're going to keep 3 of them more than likely who are starting this season. The other 2 are grad transfers, so they're not going to stick around. But, I think Hejny probably is 1 year. If he wants a really good season, can go to the draft, then it's Zane season. Would be awesome, right? That's ideal. But I think Hejny is the better right now guy because of the weakness on the right side. He's shown better composure when it collapses. My concern is that tells me that there is a lack of confidence on the right side. They weren't able to develop it enough during practice, during the reps that they got.
Got you. Well, Trent, you and I have had several conversations, and one of the things that's been fairly synonymous from people that have been, at practice and multitude of layers has been that Hauss is a problem. If he gets running and there's only a couple people on the team that can even catch him to stop him, so he's an absolute nightmare. But the common consensus has been Zane's been a little bit more of a polished passer that has a little bit more of an ability to layer in between the linebackers and the safeties. Do you think that there's some validity to what Reagan's saying, and it's potentially that offensive line that is additionally helping Hauss Hejny get this play over Zane here?
I mean, it's very valid, but I also think there's so many other things. It's just so hard right now just because it could be 100 things, it could be one thing, or we could just, like I said before, we could just be overthinking the whole thing, and Hauss is just going to run out first, and they're going to rotate, whether it's every quarter or halves, you know what I mean? So I did have, coming into the year, kind of in the summer, looking over the roster and thinking about it, I knew that our O-line, after basically losing the majority of them, I mean, they weren't great last year, but I was very nervous about how they would perform this year and if that would determine the quarterbacks. So what Reagan is saying is 100% factual. Yeah, I do have the feeling that maybe our O-line, whether it's the right side, left side, or the whole O-line in general, just hasn't progressed like the coaching staff wanted them to. And so they're going to just roll out Hauss because of his feet. He can make it with the pocket collapses. He can take off or run out of the pocket and make a play. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, it's kind of funny, man, when I heard that about the conversation with Garrett, you're right. I was like, so basically they're saying that you're going to be running for your life a decent amount of the time. Is that kind of what I'm gathering here? And whenever you have somebody as fast as Hauss Hejny, I kind of get it, right, to some degree. But at the same point in time, people tend to forget, not the regulars on the show, of course, but some people out there, that Zane Flores was the official RB3 last spring when we had 2 running backs go down. And they actually, let him tote the rock, and he ran the ball up the gut, A gap, B gap, 2 hole, 1 hole. He legitimately did that stuff. And I don't think that you put Zane Flores back there to do that if he can't give you at least a competent look, right? So this idea that he cannot escape the pocket is almost a little crazy, but I think that also accentuates how rare of an athlete, speed-wise and elusivity-wise, that Hauss Hejny is. Regardless, I'm pretty excited about it. I think that this is going to be a pretty healthy rotation no matter what, and it'll be interesting more than anything to see what takes place as we roll into Oregon.
Well, and let me say something real quick to Reagan's point earlier. He said, the best scenario would be Hauss, having a great year, him being the starter, and then taking off to the NFL, and then it being Zane's turn. Do both of you expect that if Hauss is the starter, that Zane sticks around after this year? Like, do you really think he would, or do you think no chance?
The only way is if he was guaranteed a starting position and got an NIL package worth seeing. That's really the only way, in my opinion.
Well, Trent, you know some people in his camp. He does love Stillwater. He does love the atmosphere. He loves the university. He feels very comfortable. But I think all of us could see some writing on the wall. In today's age of the portal era, if you're not really playing in a couple seasons, it is really difficult to find yourself waiting your turn like the olden days. So I think there's a lot of variables that keep Zane extremely happy in Stillwater. But I think we'd be lying if we said that he didn't expect to have a really good shot at this starting job. When Garrett Rangel and Milwaukee Smith left, clearly nobody won the job in the spring. And Zane was likely coming back, right? He had that surgery in the offseason. So maybe in spring he wasn't 100%. But come fall camp, whenever Zane got his opportunity, and we've heard that there was at least a couple days where Zane was QB1 throughout fall camp, the common consensus seemed to be that now that Zane's got his couple days at QB1, he's going to remain QB1. But evidently that did not happen, which is exciting. Realistically speaking, again, going back to Mike Gundy, typically makes these decisions predicated upon his guys that stuck around and bought into the program. And so for Mike Gundy to give this seal of approval to go with Hauss Hejny, I think it does indicate that Hauss might be an extremely special individual. One of the things that we continuously hear out of some of the people inside is he's a gamer, right? He's an absolute stud. He wants to fist fight people for that extra couple of inches. He's a J.W. Walsh dude that's ready to throw hands 24/7, and that is absolutely phenomenal. One of the reasons that I'm very excited, but I don't think it takes away from Zane. Zane's going to get some snaps there, going to rotate, and that gives Oregon a lot of things to prep for. I think that could be some of this as well, is we should be able to beat UT Martin with a significant number of backups. No knock on UT Martin. They have won 4 straight conference titles, but they lost a significant number of their starters, whether it be by graduation or in the portal. And I don't know how successful they've been in the portal fixing that. So, but we've also got to talk a little bit about some of the defensive depth chart. Do you fellas got anything else on the Zane Train and Hauss Express before we kick into segment 2 here?
Well, I just want to I think a lot of people think that my perspective is that Zane should be starting and Hauss isn't the guy. I don't really think that's anyone who has paid attention's perspective. Either guy is capable of starting at a high level. Something that you should be excited about is, remember, Hauss Hejny was 1 to 2 inches off of being a 5-star prospect going into college. TCU was thrilled about him. They weren't excited about him entering the portal. Meacham comes with the package. He was the guy that recruited him. Obviously, there's a connection there, and Meacham feels like he can be super successful. So I'm thrilled that Hejny came out on top. That just tells me that he must have, towards the end of practice, towards the end of fall, shown that he was starting to get more zip, more confidence on his throws. And because if Hejny's 70% accuracy, this is a dangerous football team immediately, right? Because he's so good on his legs. I'm telling you, this guy runs like an 11-second 100 or something insane. So he ran
a 10.6 in high school.
Yeah, that's
whenever I talked to him on the show, he was pretty confident. He's well below a 10.4 now.
That's insane. That's actually psychotic. So, yeah, I am excited. It's just last year, the quarterback battle was a problem because we didn't have a guy. This year, it's been a battle because we have 2 guys. It's a significant difference, and it's much more exciting.
Well, let me say this too before I hop off, because I gotta get out of here. But yeah. I do want to say, get both of your guys' perspectives on kind of the naming Hauss the starter for at least the first drive. Do you guys believe that it was a Mike Gundy decision, or do you guys think that Mike Gundy kind of let Doug Meacham make the decision? Because I asked because, to what Reagan was saying, Meacham brought in Hauss from TCU. He's known Hauss since Hauss was a sophomore in high school. So do you think it was more of a Gundy thing, or Gundy and Meacham, or maybe Meacham just like, okay, I want to run with my guy. I brought him in here. I want to give him the opportunity first. And Gundy was cool with it.
I think if you look at Gundy's track record, this is him giving way to Meacham, which is probably a good thing because we know that Mike Gundy typically tiptoes a little bit too heavily sometimes in the quarterback decisions. this really feels like a Meacham decision that Mike Gundy's just, backing and giving his support of. But Reagan may feel different.
Oh, no, I think I agree. Although I think it's a little bit more of a Mike Gundy decision than not, in the sense that this is a new era for him. He's kind of stepping back into more of a GM type of role, which is exciting for me.
Yeah.
And I think he's trusting Meacham because he knows Meacham has made good decisions in the past, in the 2010s when he had him. And so I think he's confident that he can make the right call. Also, it tells me that Mike Gundy does not have a significant preference in either direction, which means both guys are playing well. Once again, backing up the previous points.
Well, and I ask because, like I said, and maybe it's just more so to get people to think, because there's so many different perspectives you could look at this situation. And do you think maybe since Zane had been there, he's been named the best high school quarterback to come out of the state of Nebraska? I just personally think if it was a Gundy thing, he would have let Zane trot out first, only because Zane's been in the program for 3 years now. This will be his third year. So that's why I'm leaning more Meacham, but I just wanted to get you guys' opinions on that, because
I agree. Traditionally speaking,
yeah,
Gundy would be going with Zane. He has 20 years of evidentiary proof of making a comparable decision to that. But again, I think you got to give props here, because it clearly looks like he's giving the freedom to Meacham to make this decision, and he's going to back it. But regardless, we've heard all camp that they're very neck and neck, right? Zane and Hauss have gone back and forth. It's been very close. Nobody's really separating. And I think that at least gives us an indication on how comfortable the staff would be if something were to happen. Because we all know the downside to having a Zach Robinson, Spencer Sanders style guy that's faster than both of those dudes is both of those dudes got injured a decent amount of time. That's the only downside. West Virginia was in my comments the other day comparing him to Garrett Green. Garrett Green, another 4.3, high 4.3, low 4.4 dude that you couldn't really catch, but he got injured a significant amount. And I think that's another variable to this that isn't being brought up a whole heck of a lot. Anyways, Trent.
Well, Well, you know what? Regardless, guys, I'm gonna hop out of here. But after seeing what we had last season at quarterback, I think it's a good situation to have. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we can sit and chop it up all night, but at the end of the day, it's definitely a good situation to have. But hey, thanks for having me on, fellas. Tomorrow's game day. Let's get it. I'm excited. I'll catch y'all soon.
All right, broski. Appreciate you. Well, this is actually a very good comment here. Of course, I should have no comment because OSU pays my bills. You know what? Covering OSU also pays my bills. So why don't I go ahead and do that right about now, ladies and gentlemen? Don't be paying for gas without getting something back for it. That's right. The Upside app has you covered. Don't go spending unnecessary money whenever you can have it back in your pocket. Upside is the bee's knees for everyone out here trying to get the most out of their driving experiences. Leave the money that you earn partially in your tank and in your wallet. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or the Google Play Store right now and start earning cash back at the pump today. Use the limited code in this show, football. That is the promo code, football, to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying gas that you already have to have anyways. At first, you're going to think that this is too good to be true. I did. My wife uses this thing pretty religiously. It is totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commute. You can be the same and put money back into your pocket that you have to spend anyways. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Do not let this opportunity drive right by you. Download the free Upside app now and use a limited time promo code football for a limited time 25% per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Make sure you head on over to upside.com for terms and conditions and start getting your money back out of your gas tank, because you're going to be spending it anyways, so at least make it beneficial for yourself. That's not all, ladies and gentlemen. We got Supply House in the building as well. Whether it's inside, you've got some problems, electrical, HVAC, doesn't matter. Supply House has you covered. If you need something repaired, get a crew moving forward with Supply House. Order the parts you need today to be at your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the businesses. The real-time inventory and honest lead times gives you everything you need from punting your projects into the future and get it done right now. The industry-leading customer service always has your backside and blind side covered. If you need parts for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. That is a game changer for you. The part finder tools and the 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support lines. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That is SHCollege, all one word, 5 at supplyhouse.com, where real people get real services for real savings. All right, buddy, now we get to slide back into this business here. So the depth chart that Oklahoma State put out, a shout out to some of the people in the comments that maybe it wasn't numerical, but it was a bunch of fluffy stuff, Reagan. The 19 oars is a story in and of itself, but as this is indicative of, they had Zane Flores or, right, under him, Hauss Hejny. Hauss Hejny clearly is the starter. Another conundrum out of the depth chart was the defensive end spot. Traditionally, when you have a 3-4 defense, you have a defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive end, right? Oklahoma State depth chart has one defensive end, and then they 2 defensive tackle spots, and then a jack linebacker spot. I kind of feel like that was purposeful. Did you agree that maybe there's some gamesmanship, some smoke and mirrors going on with the depth charts that we are putting out?
It's week 1, so it's typical to have a lot of oars. Oklahoma State is just the only team that really puts them on there for some reason. 19 oars, 11 were on defense. Something to keep in mind is 4 of them on offense were at the running back. Everything else, besides like typical wide receivers being able to swap in and out in packages, and the quarterback was super typical. Defense, 5 alone were on linebacker, and counting that almost edge guy that I'd imagine. They obviously have. I in my opinion, I think that they are very conflicted, but I don't think it's the type of confliction where it's like, oh, we don't have a good guy. I think there's a ton of packages that have been introduced, new system, and you've got to, coach from the pros. And in the pros, you got to understand they swap in linebackers and defensive linemen a lot more than in college, where you're going to have a set number of guys. He's kind of trying to put in a pro system. I think you and I talked about this before the season even started when he got hired, that he is a very rotational type of coach. So this doesn't really shock me. I think this is kind of what I expected, but I also think that we had some unexpected size. And so maybe shifting more towards the interior is something that excites me a little bit, but we're really undersized when it comes to linebacker. And I think that maybe we can hit on that in a second. I was looking at the site. We got like a 6'1" starter at like 215, which was interesting to me. Now they may have gained weight since then, obviously, but that's the last measurements that I saw. But in terms of the interior linebackers, we're a little bit undersized per typical, and we're very heavy on the front 5, which is what excites me, because I think that we're looking to kind of have some speeds to run around the edges. And then those 3 interior, you saw like, the 2 defensive tackles. I don't think there's anything wrong with that based on what I'm seeing about the size of the depth chart, linebackers, edges, etc.
Well, I do have to jump in and say that I don't necessarily think that our linebackers are undersized per se. In comparison speaking, Malcolm Rodriguez was 5'11", 225. Nick Martin, 6'1", 225. Brian McCoy, 6'2", 225. Might be closer to 6'1". Brandon Rawls, I think he might be the one you're referring to, sure. 6'1", 215, 220-ish. Yeah, he's a little bit undersized. So is Darius Thomas. But then you have guys like Gunnar Wilson that are well over 222 right now, standing a little over 6'3". Ike Essenwoon is another individual that is somewhat undersized. I can get it, but the jack linebackers are beasts. And
yes, big. That's exactly what I was trying to reference. Yeah.
Yes,
that's what's exciting. And Oklahoma State's known for undersized linebackers. So that's why I'm saying I'm not concerned at all. Right? You've got the Malcolm Rodriguez's, and even Nick Martin was considered undersized for his position until he beefed up, and now he's an absolute beast. But man, dude, I think that I'm not concerned. I think this might be actually the best overall sized Oklahoma State starting 22 offense and defense that we've ever had. Height, weight, I know I'm bouncing back to the offensive line, but almost every single guy is 6'3", 300. That's exciting. We're used to having way too undersized guys. These are the type of rosters that when you look at Oregon, we're going to need that. And I think that's another reason why we're lining up this way is we're thinking about Oregon in a week.
So we don't want to rush ahead, right?
Right.
But you mentioned the 300-pounders, and I bring this up because Mike Gundy said for 15 years we couldn't get 300-pounders, and if we did, it was a couple at a time here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So I counted this up, and the last I counted, we had 22 300-pounders plus. Oregon had 21. UT Martin has like 14 or 15, which is actually pretty impressive for that size style of school. But yeah, dude, the rotation of Amon Oates and Demarion Thomas and Sivili Hefili-Kafusi and Aiden Kelly have been very, very, very much talked about. And then right behind, I mentioned the defensive end. I do think that it's somewhat purposeful to leave Kyron Duhan and Landon Dean and Rashad Bradley and Armstrong Nodum off of the depth chart, at least to some degree, because they could have fit them on there. But I think it does allude to what you were getting at as well, though, that maybe our defensive tackle rotations are just so intense that it makes more sense to have 2D tackles on the field instead of 2 defensive end, which would be pretty rare. I do still anticipate that we see 2 defensive end, a defensive tackle, but there's clearly going to be instances where there are multiple defensive tackles on the field, even outside of the stand-up 4-man front thing that we could potentially do. Do you think that there could be some of that purposely built in here? Because obviously people were freaking out. Like, where's Kyron Duhan? This is a travesty. I'm still hearing that he's fine. You know what I mean? They just didn't have quote unquote room to put him or Dean or Armstrong on the depth chart.
Well, if Duhan's getting beat out, then that's a really good sign of your front seven. Let's just say that. To me. Brian McCoy is a guy that I'm really excited about. We're talking about linebackers. Can we talk about Brian McCoy? Guy that had 100 tackles at Akron. I don't know if you've watched any footage on this guy.
Oh, I have. He had 236 tackles at Akron, homie.
Well, I'm talking last season alone.
Yeah, he had 140 something last season and like 130 the year before.
He reminds me, and not in terms of like exact play style, but Rodriguez in the sense that he just finds guys on the field, dude. I'm telling you, he's so fast, he's agile, he just gets to running backs, he just gets to QB. So what I expect is they're going to have a guy like Wendell Gregory, who's another dude that I'm just, oh my gosh, I'm excited about Wendell Gregory. If you haven't looked into him, please do. South Carolina transfer, former 4-star, super exciting. But you're going to have Brian McCoy and Wendell Gregory shifted to the side of the double DT. And what that's going to do for you is you're going to have that anchor to get into if they're trying to hit the gap, and then you're going to have 2 guys who go to the outside if they bounce, and they have the speed to be able to do that. I think that's the plan if I'm just visually looking at the depth chart, and that's the type of thing you're going to need against an Oregon, because you're not going to be able to line 4 up. You're not going to be able to line 1 or 3 typical DN, DT, D end, because to me, when I look at this offense or this defense and the way that we're structured, we're just not going to out-physical Oregon. But we have 3 to 4 guys on our depth charts that are capable of being big enough to hold that line, create a little bit of pressure. So I think that's what this is geared toward. I think it'll change as we go into Big 12 play more likes of like Baylor, who are a little bit more undersized, that type of thing.
I dig it. Well, so we do have to hit some of the expectations and things of that nature. And before we do that, real quick,
am I reading that?
And you what?
Am I reading that comment you just? That's
up there? Zandria is one of our local OU fans that feels compelled to and you know what? Like, we go back and forth a decent amount, but I have to give credit where credit's due. The persistence from this individual to talk mess in my show is it's impressive. Like, I got to give credit where credit's due. But anyway, before we skip over to predictions, expectations, things of that nature, what do you think we're going to see out of Deshaun Brown and Jaleel Johnson this season? Because you mentioned if either one of them has already, kind of jumped Kyron Duhan, or they're outplaying Kyron Duhan, that is extremely impressive. Jaleel Johnson flirted with playing a little bit of that jack outside linebacker in the spring, so that showcases his versatility. Gundy's mentioned that they've been in the system for a few years. They have to have big seasons. Do you think that is coming, or do you think the guys behind him, like Kyron, like Armstrong, like Dean, are poised to potentially leapfrog one of these fellows by the end of the year?
Well, it's a new defensive coordinator who's going to want whoever he's brought in the transfer portal, this, that, and the other. But I think it's a good sign. The front seven is where my least concern is for Oklahoma State. But what's crazy is we have 5 oars on linebacker alone. We talked about this. So what does that mean? Is that depth or is that nobody standing out? And I think it's the opposite. You're talking about those guys that haven't fit into the depth chart. I think that's a good sign, especially because you're going to want to get some of these younger guys onto the field against UT Martin, maybe giving them a shout for the start. You know that their only start they're going to get in the game. You're going to see these other guys come in, and also just not giving Oregon the keys, because you got to understand that most teams don't have week 1 cupcake, week 2 absolute banger. Most teams don't. We do. So that is our statement game, you could say, of the season. Because what if we go out and lose by 3 points to Oregon? None of the rest of the season matter. That's exciting. Rest of everyone's excited, right? Even if you go 7-5, but you put up a good game against 10-2, number 3 Oregon or whatever. So I think there's a lot of focus on that game, and so there's a lot of guys that aren't necessarily going to be showcased on the depth chart. So Oregon doesn't focus on them themselves. I think that you're right in the sense that there's a lot of deceptive play. We're going to know a lot more when we watch through the fourth quarter, see everyone that's taken snaps, and then going into the practice of the next week, obviously you're going to start learning a lot of things about this team and who's actually going to be starting and not.
Well, that is actually a phenomenal segue for what we're about to get into. So without further ado, but before we do that, real quick, we got one more section of bill paying action to hammer real quick before we give expectations and things of that nature. Game Time Tickets is the bee's knees for all of your ticketing needs, and it is that season for all of us to get prepared to buy tickets. Not just football, but football is the best. We all know this, and it's back. Officially, the Cowboys kick off tomorrow. I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's literally nothing in life like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than sometimes the game in and of itself. With endless queues and waiting and hidden fees and prices jumping at checkout. This is why you got to use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to us, the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Well, you're going to pull up Game Time. It's just a couple of taps. You're going to see amazing deals, and it's made super simple because you get the exact view from your seat in the app before you purchase. The honest, fast, cheap, less stressful is the way to do it. Game Time provides all of that. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create that account, redeem that code, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. It's simple. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, download, get it done, and get into the game that you love the most. All right, buddy, before we skedaddle on off of here, let's give some broad stroke expectations and then close it off here with the score predictions. So I'll kick this thing off real quick. What I'm looking forward to the most is the physicality that we've been hearing that hasn't really been like this in practice in Stillwater since the Les Miles days, where he was chewing on grass and letting people bang their face masks together repeatedly. We're hearing a lot of that physicality, intensity, violence of action, moving with a purpose, getting to the quarterback, making aggressive plays. That is first and foremost what I want to see. I've got a few, but I'm going to kick it to you. What are you looking for outside of just the score generally in this ballgame?
Well, this is a team that the last 3 years that they've played an FBS team, as good as they've been at that level, right, that they're in the FCS, talk about 4 straight conference championships, they haven't scored more than 7 points. So I want to see defensive dominance, something we didn't see at a single point last year, not once, not even against South Dakota State. I want to see defensive dominance, and I want to see physical dominance. I want to see no more than 2 to 3 wins for them at the line of scrimmage all game. I want Oklahoma State to crush them there. I want that physicality that they've been talking about, the size they've been talking about, to come into play. I want us to look like a Big Ten team. That's what I want to see on the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean when I say that? Where The trenches are ours. We're not going to let anyone beat the trenches. And even if we lose, we come back at them in the next possession. That's what I want to see, because if the line of scrimmage dominates, I have a ton of confidence in the skill positions on this team. The wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the running backs, obviously Caleb Hicks, I'm sure you've talked a ton about. There's lots of guys in the skill positions that I'm thrilled about. Not as excited about the secondary defensively, so I want to see physical dominance up front.
I dig it. All right, so I'll throw another one in here that I'm anticipating to see a lot of, and you alluded to it right before we went into this segment, is rotations. We know that the running back room is going to have rotations. We know the quarterback's going to have some rotations. We know the D-line is definitely going to have some rotations. But this is a lot of players' opportunity to make a point for their next round of NIL reevaluation. So the first reassessments are supposed to be after this game. So there's going to be some players that maybe don't get as many opportunities throughout the rest of the season. And if we're as good as we think we're going to be, and we've have the ability depth-wise to keep people healthy, we have to see it. This is not a game that we can afford to have our starters playing all the way into the fourth quarter, because if that happens, this could be a tricky season. I don't see that happening. I do think that we will handle UT Martin more than we did against South Dakota State. Obviously, better than we did against South Alabama, as our resident OU fan decided to mention up in here. But we got to see this rotation, because when you're down to 105 roster limit, injuries are going to be bigger this year than potentially any year before. Because if you had 135, 140 dudes, not all of them were scholarship worthy, but there was definitely some guys in that 105 to 135 range that were getting playing time. And we watched it, the Igumadus, the Yamil Talibs, even to some degree last season, the Oliphants. These guys were getting playing time. So we don't have the luxury of those fringe dudes providing at least serviceable minutes. So injuries are going to be at a paramount. Do not put us in a position against UT Martin that we experience big injuries unnecessarily too early. Give me a massive rotation all game. And then what else what are you excited or expecting to see before we get to scores here?
Well, dude, absolutely on everything you said. And to kind of bounce off that, I want to see zero struggle. When I say that, I don't mean like moments where we have difficulties. That's going to happen in game one. I want there to be no more than after the 5 minutes into the first quarter, unless they have some like crazy weird penalty drive, where we have a single ounce of doubt in our mind that this game is going to go 4 quarters. I don't want it. We shouldn't have it. This staff has come in, tried to establish a culture. And if that culture is different than what it was last year, we're not going to accept being up 23-14 in the second quarter or the third quarter. We want to dominate this game. And then to transition into the next thing, I just want to see Hauss Hejny ball, dude. It's that simple. I just want to see Hauss Hejny show the country what you and I have been seeing in practice. I want him to show the world that he is electric, and he is going to immediately insert himself into newcomer of the year for Oklahoma State. I'm so excited to see him just show people what he's made of. So,
all right, I'll add one more before we get to score predictions, and that is I want to see the ability to run multiple styles of offense, right? We've heard about this. We went multiple weeks snapping the ball in under 4 seconds. Some of that was for conditioning, which we should be able to see visible on the field. But another portion of that is I don't think that you practice snapping the ball in under 4 seconds for weeks consecutive if you're not going to use it. Well, surely we should see some of this turbo packaging, which should also mean we see some deep shots. I want to see the offense be able to run a turbo package, be able to take deep shots, but also be able to slow the game down and eat a little bit of clock and utilize guys like Trent Howland when applicable. That was the only downside when you look at like 2011, 2013, 2015. When we had to slow the game down and eat clock, we could not do it. If we had to take our foot off the gas and do anything other than tempo, our offense got all sorts of out of whack. And that happens quite often. So I'm excited to see the tempo. I'm excited to see the deep shots, but I do want to see the professional capability to slow it down and methodically take control of a game as well. All right, buddy. When it comes to scores, I'll let you go first. I think that we could absolutely dog walk UT Martin, but I'll let you go first.
Oh, how bold Cody, you know what? Tell me, out of 10, how bold do you want me to be? Out of 10, you want me to go 10?
Be as bold as you're feeling about the Cowboys this season. Okay, actually, before you give this prediction, do you see the Cowboys reaching 9 dubs this season, yes or no? That'll give me my barometer, huh?
You know what? No, but I'm going to say yes. Absolutely. Let's go.
Right, well,
our schedule's looking tougher by the day, but I think we have a chance to if everything comes together, yeah.
Well, give me the we're about to win 9 and potentially go to Arlington thought process here.
If that is what it is, we're going back to the prime Doug Meacham days. We're going to see 3 to 4 40-yard bombs over the top of the defense. Hauss Hejny's going to break a couple off. Zane's going to get snaps in the second or third quarter, and we may even go to the third rotation by the fourth, and we win 41-7.
Oh, dude, almost brought on cue. William here in the comment section just popped up 42-10. For all you out here in podcast country, we are going to answer a few comments here, so I will read them out. William says 42-10 with Hauss Hejny rushing for 75 and throwing for 200. I like it. I dig it. I think that Zane is going to do very, very well as well. I'm very excited to see this defense, specifically the linebackers, the secondary. Shout out to Parker Robertson. I don't think there's anybody other than his family members that thought 4 years ago he was going to go from a very, very undersized walk-on to a scout team player or special teamer to a scholarship player to a scholarship player that plays quite a bit to a mother trucking starter to begin the season against UT Martin. And he's doing so good that he essentially helped run off one of the highest rated safety commits in Oklahoma State history, and Zaquan Patterson. Shout out to Parker. What a bad A story that gives us that old school Cowboy culture, grinded out connection still. Gotta love him for it. Excited to see what he can bring. All right. I will also say, from a score perspective, I think we could absolutely dog walk UT Martin.
We need it, dude. How long has it been to dog walk the team?
I don't think we're gonna.
No. Don't say it.
Number one, I think that we're going to do a significant amount of rotating. I think that is the plan going into the game. Secondarily, the weather seems to be somewhat dicey. Yeah. Now, does Boone Pickens have the same problems that Dublin, Ireland does? Thankfully not. But it might be a little bit of a limiting factor. And then lastly, and maybe the biggest reasoning, I highly, highly doubt that either the defense nor the offense is going to run more than like 15, 16-ish plays. Like there's no way the objective is going to be open up the playbook, run some crazy reverses, flea flickers, show Sam Jackson in the backfield. I don't think that we're going to do all of that. I would imagine that we're going to save the fun stuff for Oregon. So it being very vanilla with a ton of rotational minutes, I think it's going to be more like 34 to 14-ish. I think they'll score on some of our third string guys.
That's super reasonable, but I disagree with you for one fundamental reason.
All right.
If this team is who we think it is, and they are the 9-win team, right? If that's who we hope it is, if they are that team, this will be the first year where we can run 13 to 15 plays and our physicality is enough to dog walk a UT Martin. If the physicality, because that's all that should matter in this game for me. If we are dominating up front, it doesn't matter what UT Martin does. It doesn't matter if we run 13 plays. They're not going to be able to stop it. That's what I hope to see.
Wet Blanket, another regular who has had some hostility with me at times. It's weird. It's Reagan. It's like sometimes I ruffle people's feathers. I don't get it. I thought I was over here being a Captain Eloquent 24/7. But nonetheless, Kirby says up over 21 at halftime. A Wet Blanket says 31-14 Cowboys.
I like that one.
Yeah, at least you can take it, Cody. Well, I mean, you have to, in my personal opinion, right? If you can't take it, then I don't know, you're probably not going to do very well in this industry. And it's been fun. I will also admit, though, and Reagan, you and I have had these conversations, that I have learned some things along the way, and it's constantly a growing process. But I feel incredibly blessed to be able to do what I do. I feel blessed to be able to help, get some guys here and there to Stillwater, and hopefully some of the guys that I've helped can make a massive impact on the game this go round. And this is a game to do it, right? Because there's some young cats that are looking, they're starving for opportunities. They should get it against UT Martin. Hopefully they can take advantage of it. All right, broski. I reckon that's all we're going to have for this one right here. Let the fine folks out here know, what have you been doing to stay busy, and where can they track you down to see some of your work, broski?
Well, everyone knows me from OK State, Mar. If you want to follow Oklahoma State-related stuff, that's where to find me, really. I'll stick with that for this one.
Fair play. A man of just enough words. Reagan, I greatly appreciate your time. It was another good one from the Mick. Yes, later. Yes, absolutely. You got it, see? And the terminology even is accurate. All right, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. Make sure you'll go check out Reagan, Mark Cast, the dude behind the beautiful stuff that you see oftentimes on X. Make sure you go give him a follow. Hit the like button if you like it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay, too. I have feelings, but I can stuff those aside. My podcast and people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. You know the drill. I like it. It is finally that time. Tomorrow is that day. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. Later, taters.